Now, you know, the thing that's interesting about it, and I think I shared with you earlier also, I mean, I didn't know that that would be offensive. I've always heard that. So I didn't even know that that would be something that would be even be thought of being offensive.
It's offensive. You go back to the history of using it, and it was used to belittle and put the Chinese community down. And so, you know, I'm Japanese American, but often as people have tried to make fun of me from when I was a child, they use that ching chong because they didn't know the difference between myself as a Japanese American and Chinese. So it has always been used historically to make fun and to kind of belittle the way you talk or the way you look. So to us, it is very offensive.
Now, and I also shared on the phone with you, and this again goes back to my experience. And I know this sounds ignorant, and it probably is. I'm like, it's hard for I guess maybe for a lot of black people to understand how Asians are being discriminated against when they seem to be at the top of the ladder in every field, or at least the perception is that you're doing well and you don't experience, you know, negative images or issues pertaining to your community.
It's there. Every day it's there. I don't know how many times in my life I've been told to go back where I came from. I think we're looked at as foreigners, and all the negative aspects of being foreigners. You know, the issue of immigration hits us. Voting rights has hit us because of language problems. So we have really two communities. We have the Japanese American community and parts of the Chinese American community that have been here for 3 and 4 and 5 generations. But then you have the new immigrants from Asia who are newly here, only their first generation, who have the language problems, who have the cultural problems that they have to deal with, and it is a big problem.
Well, you know, clearly one of the issues that I find that makes it easy for us to, I guess, engage in offensive behavior, okay, is that one, we don't always know enough about the other cultures to recognize something that we are doing is going to be interpreted as offensive. When you have a very limited understanding of a particular culture, and maybe the majority of that understanding is based on stereotypes, okay, well, if that's what you're drawing from in an attempt to relate to people, it could, you know, we do that sometimes, not even trying to be demeaning, but thinking, of course, that's the way in which to relate to someone else.
And I think, you know, public at large needs to be sensitized to some of these issues.
Right.
One of the problems that we face is if something happens in Japan or China that's negative, it impacts upon us because people think we are foreigners. One current example is NASCAR. NASCAR has recently allowed Toyota to enter this all-American sport. And there have been a lot of blogs and comments about why are we allowing this foreign company to get into our sport without knowing that Dodge is Daimler Chrysler, which is a foreign company now. So what happens globally often has an impact on us for people who think that we are foreigners and not, you know, not Americans.
And one thing that's interesting is, especially with the Asian community, is the invisibility that is often, it's like a veil is actually put on the Asian community when it comes to public media, that nobody sees them, you know. So in terms of the public opinion that's created through the media is the quiet Asian that you never see, you know. So it's like the Asian is invisible. I mean this trend goes back a long way. I think everybody remembers how back in the day Bruce Lee struggled trying to break through the mainstream media as a martial art expert, that they actually went to the extent of having a Caucasian represent an Asian because they wanted to keep the Asian in the background. They wanted to keep the Asian invisible. So the whole issue comes back to what is an American. Whenever we think of what an American is, it's like the default is a Caucasian.
And we're going to come back in just a moment, and we're going to discuss what is American. What does American look like? Okay, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back with more Black Men Screaming in just a moment.
We're the Japanese American Citizens League. People call us the JACL. We're the largest and we're the oldest Asian American civil rights organization in the country. We have a website, very, very easy, jacl.org. And there you can find out about what we do.
Welcome back to Black Men Screaming. As we took a little break, we were discussing what does American look like. You know, we talk about all this stuff. I haven't seen any particular image that someone can draw me that what makes up an American. If it would be anything, it would be a collage of people. I guess maybe unless you were Aborigine, then maybe you would say that this is what a real American looks like. So why do we have this perception of what a, you know, who's a real American when I thought we was a melting pot?
You know, it's interesting to me when you ask somebody that question and you allow them to verbalize an answer, they will say, yeah, we're a melting pot, or we're a mosaic, or they use all of these glowing terms that attempt to describe the fact that we are representative of a lot of different people. But when you start looking at the images that validate whether or not we're a melting pot or not, it's difficult to see a number of people, particularly in the Asian community, okay, in certain environments. And we talked about this off camera, the fact that if you look on television, you don't really see very many Asian Americans portrayed in roles. There are a number of supporting roles. A lot of times they are the only single member of a cast. Okay, so if it's an Asian male, I guess he doesn't get the luxury of an Asian wife on a given show. Okay, we see a handful of people in the news. I think we talked about that, but in particular, it's overwhelmingly Asian women as opposed to Asian men. So when we're looking for the validation of the fact that we're a mosaic, it's hard to see people other than the white male, okay, in many of these as many of these examples.
You know, it's an interesting question because you know, recently we've had the discussion on immigration, and as I was wandering the halls of Congress last year, towards the end of the session, I visited a couple of congressmen, and I got the same comment from several of them, and their worry was these people coming into our country to change our way of life. So I think an American is not so much how we look, it's what we feel and why we're here. And the spirit of wanting to get better, the entrepreneurial spirit, so to speak, I think that's where the immigration and the spirit of America is. It's not, you know, it could be Polish, it could be African, it could be South American or Asian. It's that feeling, it's that attitude of wanting to be something better than what you are or were. And I think that's what American is. It's not what we look like.
Well, you know, one of the arguments, and someone shared this with me when I was talking with them, I wanted them to come on the show, but they wouldn't come on. They were like, well, you know, these people don't want to assimilate. They don't want to be a part of America. I said, but my question is, what do you mean when you say assimilate? What does it mean to be American through assimilation? What is that?
Yeah, because this comes back to the same point that the default of what America is and what an American is a blue-eyed, tall, Protestant Caucasian, you know, and their whole perspective to life and way of being has to be European. Anything other than that is the other. So that's why, I mean, I want to vote for somebody who is Asian. Why don't we have an Asian running for president as we speak today? I want to vote for an Asian. Where is he? Where is the representative? This is the problem we're talking about, that there is an assumption and an agreement that the European is the default. So in order, so for you to assimilate, it means to come as closer as possible to that way of thinking and that way of looking. So that's the problem we face.